The Police on 99X. It's Barnes and Leslie. Before we get to our next guest, who is a huge TikToker, I would like to play one of his TikToks for you to enjoy before we break it down with him. Have a look.
So let's see here. Spike Patrick, 1970, asks, is it true that Murder by Numbers is widely regarded as one of the most difficult drum pieces to play? Yes, it is so regarded, but it's actually not true. I mean, let's see, little Murder by Numbers here. Piece of cake, right? What's really hard is Spirits in the Material. 1, 2. That's hard.
Yes, it is. As a drummer, I am trembling right now as I welcome, in my opinion, one of the best drummers of all time from The Police. Hey, Stewart Copeland.
Hey, good morning, Atlanta.
Good morning.
Barnes, I might as well just leave.
You might, yeah.
You know,
we're finna start talking about paradiddles and stuff. You should probably go do something.
Yeah, see you later.
All your listeners, you can go do the dishes or something like this while we talk about paradiddles.
Yes. So 7 Grammys, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I will say in the last 12 months, the 4th member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on with us. We had Sheryl Crow, Mick Jagger, Michael Stipe, now Stewart Copeland with a brand new book, Stewart Copeland's Police Diaries. Let's get into it. How are you?
Good. I'm over here in California, and it's raining. It's very unaccustomed, but we will suffer this indignity of being rained upon. Otherwise, all good.
I have to say, this is like the ultimate gift for any sort of Stewart Copeland or Police fan, the Police Diaries. But what's so cool about it is that it's actually original diary pages. Now, as a young musician, what made you think about doing like diary entries on the road?
Oh, delusions of grandeur, of course. Like every young musician, I assumed that the world would soon be mine and that all the historians on the planet, music historians, would wish to know how much the Police got paid when we played the Hope and Anchor pub on Thursday night.
It really is like a peek behind the curtain. But I was going to ask you today, with social media being so prominent, what would it be like today if the Police came out? Would you be vlogging? Would you be doing like Instagram stories every day?
Oh, yeah. Well, these days, it is very much a do-it-yourself industry, which is a really good thing and a bad thing. It's a double-edged sword. Music has been democratized with technology that allows any damn fool to make music, and you don't even need to use your fingers except on an alphanumeric. So that means everybody can make music. That's a good thing for the listeners anyway. It's tough for competition for that particular artist. But also, you can sell it yourself. You can create your own media by getting online. Once again, the problem is the competition. So anybody can do it, but the problem is everybody's doing it. So I wouldn't even know how to start nowadays, but I did the 1977 version of Do It Yourself, which is shaking every tree, making every phone call, calling up record stores in Manchester and selling them boxes of 25 my darn self. But in those days, it was much more industrial and a higher wall to climb.
Well, as someone, Stewart Copeland, that I looked up to as a young drumming Barnes, tried to emulate you, it was very hard. I mean, you are such an intricate drummer, but you're also a big-time entrepreneur, and I think that runs in your blood. And you're like me, when you set your eyes on something and you're going to do it, you kind of just talked about it, you do it. And so when it comes to the Police, my question is, that was your band from the start. I mean, you were the guy, you named it, you started the band, you found the guys. As you went through it, did it stay that way?
No. Yeah, as you can see in the book, I've got the early set lists, which are mostly songs you would not recognize today. And at first, they're like my crap songs, bass lines with yelling, which are basically using my 3 guitar chords to conform to the punk dictum of thou shalt not have guitar solos, thou shalt not do love songs, etc. Just so we could fit into the punk scene and play those punk clubs, which was the only scene going on at the time. And then at a certain point, if maybe the discerning reader will notice that the set lists are no longer in my handwriting. Now Sting's writing. Now Sting's writing the set list. And by the way, I'm a happy guy because he's at the front of the stage. He had then and does now a really great instinct for what song to play next. Sure. And for me, it was a feeling that he's committed. You know, my big challenge was to keep him in the band, keep him motivated, keep him going. Because, of course, I mean, just look at the guy. Everybody was whispering in his ear. And I just had to keep him more interested in the Police than in all the other options out there. So when he's beginning to take over the band, that's a good thing. Particularly when he comes into the rehearsal room with Born in the 50s. Then So Lonely, then Roxanne, then Can't Stand Losing You, then Message in a Bottle. La, 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 la. So it got better and better. Meanwhile, I had my own thing, Clark Kent, which had a hit before the Police did. And so I was quite secure in my own creative output and achievement, so on. So I was quite happy for Sting to get more committed to the Police. And next thing I knew, it was his band.
And you had huge success as a solo artist, composer. But I want to go back to this because I know you've thought about this. Of the millions of bands and artists that don't make it, I mean, the percentage is slim of the ones that do make it. There had to be incredible chemistry. You guys, arguably one of the greatest bands of all time. It was that chemistry, and how you came together was very interesting. But looking back, I mean, one of the most phenoms of all time. Do you think about how you came together and that once-in-a-lifetime chemistry?
I'm basically grateful. I'm not that religious, but if I were, I would be on my knees praying and thanking. But I am, even though I'm not religious, I'm on my knees praying and thanking. It was just a happy... You know, we were complete strangers, but from the first time when he showed up in London, he called me from a phone booth on the street downstairs. Hi, I'm here in London. You know, that husky voice that we all know so well now. I said, come on up. And two complete strangers, we plugged into the amps and just took off for the outer cosmos, raging high, digging deep, thrusting forward, pulling back for moments of poignance, and then charging. You know, it was just an amazing connection right away. This holy grail that all musicians seek, which is the pocket, where two or more musicians just feel each other's pulse and land right on it. I could throw him any curve bar, he would catch that sucker and throw it back even more with even more zing. So right there, from the first time we met, it was obvious that we had a musical connection, which carried us through all the tribulations. This book is all about the starving years. By the time we started to get famous, that story is picked up by my film, Everyone Stares, which I shot on Super 8 and released several years ago.
Well, we have to take a break, and that leads up to a good point. I want to play a clip of a little fight between you and Sting, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Of course, you got to go there.
Come on, you used to be a radio DJ. You know you have to pull them along with that stuff. You know you do. Stewart Copeland's got a new book out, Stewart Copeland's Police Diaries. That's Stewart Copeland right there. We'll be back with him. This is the original. It's 99X.
That's going to be cover of Modern Drummer magazine is going to be devoted to that drum fill.
It's amazing that you could play that drum fill in 9 beats.
Right? Huh?
It's fantastic.
Just because you get lost, just because it's a little confusing for the bass playing element. Okay?
It's going so well, too. It was amazing when we got back here in this room, how, where's that jugular? Ah!
So what was happening there? That was a rehearsal, right?
Yes, I believe we were rehearsing Message in a Bottle. And Sting, who I love and admire deeply, did come up with the insane suggestion. How about if we play it without that guitar riff? Diddle-dee-dee-diddle-dee-doodle-dee-dum-ba-diddle, And Andy and I are looking at each other, go, but what? That's kind of important. No, but Sting, thinking, no, let's try something new. Okay, you got me there. Okay, you got my vote, yeah. You had me at new. I was going, brang. Okay, stop. let's just only do half of the chorus. So brang, brang. Now, wait a minute, what song is this we're playing? And this was the sort of debate that we would have in the police. And the reason we would end up screaming was because we just had no comprehension of what the other guy was thinking. Are you mad, sir? And we realized way later into the tour, when we're, Sting and I are both driving each other crazy, and we're wondering why everybody's having the best tour ever, but two guys in the center of it all are mad all the time. So we had band therapy.
That's exhausting.
Which worked, by the way. I guess these guys probably do marriage counseling or something, but anyhow, this was band counseling.
So you and Sting sat down with a counselor like a married couple?
Oh, yeah. Legs crossed, very, very touchy-feely, very new age. I don't think we had incense and candles or anything. Usually they have they said that usually we have a drum, but we thought better not in this particular session. Good call. Anyhow, they just induced us to say what's on our minds, and we said what was on our minds, and blew each other's minds. And each of us thinking, really? When I said you thought, and when you did, and we could not believe what was coming out of the other party's mouth. And
wow.
What was really established was the deep bond connection that we actually have with each other. And now we understood why it is that we're fighting all the time. And it was actually pretty simple. Music has a different place in our lives. We listen to music for different reasons. We make music for different reasons. We make music because of all that. We have a different approach to how and why we're making music in the first place. And even though we were codependent in the beginning, and he just plugs in that bass and we just take off together, the big picture of what music is for, we both have a different idea. For him, a song is something that's about something. It has a subject. He tells a story. He has a lyric, which I didn't even realize his lyrics were any good until I did my Police Deranged for Orchestra tour and had to analyze those lyrics. And I'm thinking, I'm just banging stuff at the back of the stage here. I didn't know what he was singing about. I only ever saw the back of his head. But from his point of view, those songs are important. From my point of view, I don't care what he's singing about. I just want to burn the building down. I'm banging back here. Let's light it up. And
I love it.
Kind of, my intentions are perfectly honest, and so are his. And I later discovered, those songs actually are pretty cool. Wouldn't be a totally terrible idea for the audience to be able to hear the lyric and for us to play it at a tempo where he can utter them, with good diction. That understanding, it was not that we were trying to kill each other, even though that was sometimes the thought did cross our minds. It was, we had honest reasons for our disagreements, which had nothing to do with Satan.
We're talking to Stewart Copeland. This book is incredible. Police Diaries, talking about, the early days of the police, all in original diary pages from Stewart Copeland. Stewart, I was at the final reunion show, 2008 at Madison Square Garden. Such a fan. I was so excited. What was going on in your head during that reunion tour? Because I remember reading an interview with you where you were like, okay, I have to play differently now. I have to go back to being like a rock drummer because you weren't doing that. Was that a fun tour for you? What was going on through your head?
Well, some of it was really fun. The shows were fun because we couldn't stop and argue about anything. There's, 80,000 people in front of us, or 18 in Madison Square Garden, including you.
Yes.
And so we just have to play the show. And occasionally there's poor old Stingo trying to sing his beautiful, poignant song, and there's World War III going over his left shoulder, which is bound to piss him off. And, we get into fisticuffs on stage, but I still enjoyed the music. It was hard work, pounding stuff, chopping wood for 2 hours, but the music was good. Everything, and when we would socialize, which was rare, we get along fine, but in rehearsal and sound check and all the times when we didn't have the audience there as a referee, it was tough because of our different approaches and purpose with regard to music. So it was. I've often described the Police as like a Prada suit made out of razor blades.
Man, you are a soundbite machine. Stewart Copeland, and congratulations, by the way. I know the 40th anniversary of Every Breath You Take just happened. That, made a few bucks.
Yeah, a couple.
Was that the absolute... that was... Come on, you knocked Billie Jean out, right? I mean, I think you stayed number one for like 8 or 9 weeks or longer than Billie Jean.
Yeah, and then if you add Puff Daddy in there, that's the longest running number one ever.
Was that the absolute peak? And at that point, did you know it was over with the Police?
I was surprised that it carried on for another, after Ghost in the Machine, which was so tough to record. I was surprised that Sting showed up for another album after that, because it was
Really?
It was hard for all of us for completely different reasons. It was hard for him because he writes these songs, which are, by the way, he sort of cares about his songs. Who knew? And he has to struggle with the band to get them to play this beautiful song that he wrote in the way that he wrote it and conceived it. For me, he brings in a song, wow, fantastic, let me add it. I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. And each of one of these brilliant ideas that I have for what to do to his song are intrusions, are compromises that he has to make. So it's very tough for him and very tough for me, because he's got this implacable notion about how the song should go. And gosh darn, I can't even remember what you just told me. I'm just banging stuff here. I do it instinctively. All those drum parts on all those records were conceived on the spot. There was no rehearsal, no setup, no nothing. I'm listening while Sting is showing Andy the chords and the riff. And, okay, let's do a take right then and there in the studio. And about the second or third take is what's on the record forever. So all that stuff was completely spontaneous. I'm not a great session drummer because I just don't take instruction, which is tough for the guy who wrote the songs.
But that's what made you the unbelievable drummer that you are.
And by the way, the times when the homicidal urge rose to be almost just insufferable, I must kill you now, was the times when he was right.
Wow.
So interesting looking back. You do talk in Police Diaries about the starving years, which is hard to believe, but you had a couple of starving years. Were you working part-time jobs to make ends meet to pay the rent?
Well, I was doing articles for Sounds magazine, reviewing equipment. Sting and I were doing a lot of sessions because we were very much in demand as a session, as a rhythm section. And so we made ends meet one way or another. I still had some money saved up from Curved Air, which I was able to eke out over a certain period. And also, we were living in a 2-story apartment in Mayfair, London, which is real fancy. It's like in the British version of Monopoly, the two purple ones right at the top. That's Mayfair.
Yeah, I know Mayfair,
and
yes.
You got to read the book to get what we were doing there. But that's where I was living when Sting got down to London. He was impressed by, it looked like if Vampire Lestat lived in London, this is where he would have lived. Complete gothic over, 2-story penthouse in Mayfair, which is where the band started. Starving in Mayfair. Well, I didn't have rent to pay because we were squatting.
Really?
My dad had a friend, this fancy socialite journalist, who had this fancy apartment, and she had some guests who stayed and wouldn't leave, and she couldn't get rid of them. So my father had a suggestion. How about my rock star son and even gnarlier older brother? How about they move in too? So we did, with my drum set.
Wow.
You're a hustler. You are a complete, that is the beauty of it, man. You just find what you want, you get it. You take care of it, you do it. Well, it's been such a pleasure to meet you after all these years, so thank you for coming on our little show.
Big fans.
Well, thanks for listening.
We're listening to you anytime you want to call. Stewart Copeland, Police Diaries is out now. Stewart, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.